tonight. Waterway Management Act, options for reforming the legislation governing riparian land in Victoria. So I guess this really started from David being quite interested in this topic, having a lot of experience in this topic, and obviously it's something that we need to address. We need to at least consider. We need to consider the complexities. It's a whole host of complexities, and I think tonight's going to actually open up quite a can of worms or a Pandora's box or whatever you want to call it. Because there are a lot of challenges with thinking about a Waterway Act by incorporating a lot of the acts that are in place already, and understanding ASPs as being very dynamic, and that's not necessarily reflecting that. So without further ado, I want to introduce the President of the Institute of Surveyors, and also who spent a lot of time at DSC, now in private practice, Rob Steele. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Big subject, and Dave and I have been allocated about 20-25 minutes each, so excuse me if I rip through it all. The idea is not to be slow tonight, but it's to tease little ideas out in your mind that you might like to follow up and ask questions of us later. And I feel sorry for these poor buggers here, Jamie and Monica, come all the way down from Wangaratta, because they can shout me a few reds any time they like and hear all this, but hold on. Okay, that's me. President Institution of Surveyors Victoria. I work for a mob called the EDM Group in Wodonga, Wang in Wodonga, a couple of days a week. Currently working for Office to Live in Victoria too, doing something totally different other than that, but it's in the water and sewage area. Ex-Big Roads, North East CMA and DSC, Crown Land Management and Catchment Water, a few things like that. And I've got a few other bits and pieces. And the two topics I'm talking up, what I was going to call it, that's the other alternative topic tonight, riparian frontages, unfinished business. So trivia question for you. Victoria's oldest profession, I was hoping Anthony Wilson from North East CMA was going to be here. He's well versed on that. Anyone like as a guess? Victoria's oldest profession?
Politics, always.
Politics, no, actually you're wrong. Institute of Surveyors Victoria was founded in 1874, the old professional institution in Victoria, just for your benefit. And Surveyor General of New South Wales is the oldest public service position in Australia. So I know some of you people were thinking the oldest profession was something else. Okay, a couple of key dates now. You'd all be aware of that, 1851 to 1862. About 1850, 1851, David will correct me. It's great to have David here because he will correct all these mistakes and he follows me, so he's good like that. That's about the Separation Act of Victoria from New South Wales. And between 1851 and 1862, we allocated general and old law titles in Victoria. There's still heaps of buggers around. They're a pain in the arse when you come across them. 1862, Torrens title. That's when the Torrens title, or it's called Land Under the Act, came in Victoria. 1874, the Institution of Surveyors Victoria was founded. Currently their state president, and hopefully I'll hand that mantle on in about August. Didn't happen last year, it'll happen this year, it will be handed on. In 1881, very, very important date, land permanently set aside along reserve for public purpose along 1,500 odd waterways in Victoria. And a lot of surveyors have been around to witness many of those riparian issues. My thing to you is we all work on these riparian frontages individually. We should be working together because collectively we might solve some of the problem. So I say riparian frontages are unfinished business. We all deal with riparian frontages in different ways. We've all got problems with riparian frontages. Most of the issues are to do with the defects in the legislation, and most of the issues are to do with problems that were never envisaged in the past when legislation is written. Legislation is written for a purpose, envisages a problem, and it's written to solve it. Only the problems with riparian frontages have occurred because they're never envisaged in the first place. And I've got that slide because I know it's one of Joe's favourites. And I'll just say that do you ever think that this was envisaged when a lot of the land law was actually written? And that particular landowner had a licence with DSC, and he actually wanted the CMA to actually put back the land he'd lost, because, a few things like that.
Quite right.
Yeah, quite right. I know, it's no sort of conflict. A couple of key terms: general law, old law, common land, Torrens title, freehold land, that's what you and I own, Crown land, that's something I managed or mismanaged for about 6 or 8 years or something like that. Most people have heard of those terms, and most people don't have heard them, they don't really understand them, unless they've been to a David Gabriel Jones seminar, and whatever, and there's actually no one here that worked for me at the North East CMA, so we've got to rely on David Gabriel Jones' seminar to really understand all those things. Okay, parish plan, the most vital piece of information anyone can have doing any work along riparian frontage in Victoria. If you really want to understand what you're working on, understand the parish plan. Parish plans, nothing to do with St Patrick's, nothing to do with religion or anything like that. But we were settled with descendants of the English, and parish plans, quaintly, they're the subdivision plans that were produced by the state to record who they sold the land to. Basically, that's a parish plan, and they're still there. There's some examples, and there's some handouts there for the 10 lucky people that get in first, or 9, because there's one over here now. That's a typical sort of parish plan, and it shows little bits, like it shows the name of the person it was sold to, and it shows the area, and it shows the date. So that's parish plan, and it shows the Murray River and a few things like that. Get in a bit closer, again you can see the fellow's name, the crown allotment number, acres, roods and perches, 4 roods to an acre, 40 perches to a rood, all those really great metric systems. And there's a date in there when it was sold. So you have all those sorts of things on a parish plan, and we'll come back to some of the stuff in there later. Then you get another parish plan. Brilliant, this one. Okay, shows there used to be a Bandiana-Kajiwa railway line, and there was a station there and all the rest of it out of Bandiana. The particular bit, I want you to focus on that bit now. And that particular bit there. That's particularly interesting. You see reserved for public purposes, that 1881 bit, there is, that's on a parish plan. This bit's interesting. Okay, because what it meant was when that land was alienated, it was pre-1881, so there wasn't that Crown Reserve along the river. Okay, you looked at the fine print and read the date. So basically, that fella at the time, and I know David's here to correct me, he reckoned he whilst it sort of said the Kiwa River, whatever was his frontage, there's a lot of sort of old common law that said he went to the centre line of the river, because that was what happened in England. If you owned property that abutted the river, you actually went to the centre line of the river, or those sorts of things. And then there was a thing called the top of the bank when the river was there, but a lot of people still reckon they owned at the top of the river. But David will tell you, there's a thing called the Period of Enlightenment, 1905, the Water Act. The bed and banks are now Crown land. They went back and changed those old titles, but the Water Act 1905 said the bed and banks are Crown land. So people still got their title. It says they own the middle of the river, and if you go there and pull up and fish, like I've done on some of those similar properties, landowners will come down and tell you to bugger off, and you're sitting out in the middle of the river in a boat fishing. But you know that Water Act 1905 said the bed and banks are Crown land, so they don't actually know what they think they own. A lot of issues to do with water frontages talk about the doctrine of accretion and deposition, natural movement, slow and imperceptible change, and there's some of the terminology theories that came from England, because I think some of their fairly old country and some of their river movements were fairly slow. Our rivers are dynamic, they are up in the northeast anyway, different out in the Wimmera, up in the northeast, Golden Broke and some of those, our rivers are dynamic. They're highly stressed, regulated rivers, some of them, and I really ask the question these days of what's natural. And as a surveyor trying to look at some of our river frontage issues, how do you look at some of those legal terminologies around that? And as I say, do you reckon that's natural? I don't. Heaps of factors occurring there. I go back to a parish plan. There's a parish plan that shows a river. It shows a Crown land permanently reserved. So that was 1881. This little bit of area in there is important, because this is the land that we sold people. Well, the state flogged the people. So we had the river, we had this Crown land permanently reserved in 1881, this little bit of land in between. What the hell's that? Okay, 1881, year of Enlightenment, river, permanent reserve, public purposes. Then there's this little bloody strip of Crown land in between. So that's Crown land. So that's just basically Crown land, unreserved Crown land, land that they didn't flog. So they set the land aside for permanent reserve, they flogged a bit, that's a little bit in between, and then there's the freehold land that the landowner owns. So they're the things you ought to be aware of when you're out doing work on frontages. And most of you people here are in the NRM industry, natural resource management. Your bound of interest goes to the river. It includes the permanent reserve, it includes the Crown land, and then you've got the freehold. And your band of interest, depending on what you do, will be somewhere in there. And it's sort of easy. Now, the trouble you'll find is that the people at DSE that manage the permanent reserve and the Crown land don't understand freehold, and most of the people that deal with freehold don't understand that there's a thing called Crown land in between. And that's one of the things that David's also trying to make. NRM purposes, okay, so you've got three types of Crown land and legal dealings that were never envisaged, because they're all different acts and all different bits and pieces. And even something simple as trying to impound some livestock. If you've got some livestock on one of those Crown frontages, what authorisation has someone got to impound livestock? The bloody Crown Land Reserves Act says you've got to be an authorised officer of DSE. You've basically got to have a uniform and a caption and spray and battens before you can actually ring up the pound keeper and tell him to go and impound some livestock. All sorts of bits and pieces. So legal dealings never envisaged, and I call it the square peg in the round hole. And again, what acts are involved, what takes precedence, and I keep coming back to legislation is only as good as two things. The intention of the objects of what the Act was about and what was foreseen, and then of course how good the legal drafting is. Because they might have great intentions, but if they stuff up the legal drafting, then now everyone picks on the legal drafting and say it doesn't provide for that. Okay, we're now undertaking riparian activities never envisaged when that legislation was drafted, and situations that were never envisaged when all this current legislation was drafted. And we've got those sorts of things, and what do you do with them out there now? Legal situation, DSE, 7 or 8 years there. DSE under the Land Act, 1958, the good old DSE grazing licences. Dave will tell you, Land Act 1958, basically a Land Settlement Act that talked about the provisions for flogging land, the bailiff or whatever could have run 2 cows on the common, that sort of thing. Basically encouraged the draining of swamps to produce productive land, everything like that. And basically it said if someone was in possession of Crown land, in other words, they could fence their boundary between them and themselves and the Crown land, or they could take out a licence. So that's the legal situation. Land Act 1958, which is only a rewrite of the Land Act of 1903 or something, David, isn't it? Then it was a rewrite of the one of about 1868 or something like that. But I just put the question to you. What else do we want and need now and into the future? And I'll just throw that slide in. A great little family shot. Of course, the Land Act 1958, it was probably the legal drafting of, it was happening about 1957. I did a bit of cross-dressing at times, so, who knows, that might have been where it came from, but, there's a gentleman or something, and back, that's the era we're talking about, when all this legislation was drafted. Okay, so, what do we need now? You see how out of date that photo is. We're dealing with it now. Okay, I'll give you a little scenario. Picture this isn't the Golden Broken CMA. Mark didn't come in. It's the Broken Creek. It's the area that he heard I was talking, and he's gone for lunch with Jared, tea with Veronica and Jared up in Lygon Street. Disappointments, I suppose. I've worked at DC long enough to understand that. Picture this government road. You saw government roads set out on parish plans too. They had freehold land, they had rivers, and they had government roads. Look at the government road. It's on a parish plan. This is a bit out, I say, on the Broken Creek, out west of Newmarket. That's a government road, those pink bits. They're government roads. These little lines here, that's actually where the bloody road runs now. So in other words, apart from some stuff-ups in the overlays or whatever, the road wasn't, where it's gone is not where it was meant to be. A little bit like rivers. They're not now where they're meant to be. Okay, so if you think about that on the road's in the wrong spot. It was foreseen though, and this legislation, very clumsy, but no problem. You work through, Crown land has to give permission because the government road is Crown land, so under the Minister gives assent, but there's a road exchange which occurs under the Local Government Act, so it's a little bit clumsy. You've got 2 acts. There's a Subdivision Act, special clause in the Subdivision Act, very, very clumsy, but it works. There's only a few of us understand it, but if you need to do it, give me a ring. But you've done it again. That's a particular problem I solved for Envert and the Golden Broken CMA about 2 years ago, where Envert were trying to buy this land in here for environmental offsets for some of their great irrigation work. The trouble was, bloody government roads through the middle of it was already Crown land. They couldn't buy it and give it back to the Crown for vegetation offsets. It was already Crown land. The solution was, bloody road was out here. So rather we'll do a bit of a swap or exchange. and therefore, that land could become freehold, which meant they could then give it back to the Crown and get some credit for it if you ever get through the vegetable DSC. Anyway, there it is. I've put some photos of that there, over there in the handout. I just say that this is straight off GeoVic or the land bits and pieces. Just beware, because that's the latest picture that you get off some of those websites. That's where it shows the legal position of the road to be, between those thick lines. That's after we've done the survey and fixed it all up. The aerial photo still shows the road out here. The aerial photos and the title boundaries aren't correct. A lot of people go out there and use the title boundaries shown in those aerial photos. Sometimes they're pretty good. Places like that, they're 20 plus metres out, and that's in dead flat country. Normally you expect in really hilly country, where the scales of photos can be all out, that there'll be errors. That's in dead, flat, boring, bloody irrigation country, Western America. That should be shit off. That should be within about 3 or 4 metres. Always just wary about that. So, got the issues, yeah. Beware, boundary and area photos, cardboard's off the screen. Never take cardboard off the screen on one of those and use it to set out a boundary. It's actually illegal. Only a licensed surveyor can do that. Been a few issues with one CMA and a few things recently. Okay, so that's a road. I've just said to you now, what if a river moves? Oh shit, that wouldn't happen. No one ever envisages that. Okay, we come back to this good old parish plan there. Parish plans are fantastic. Look on parish plans, you have rivers, you have everything like that. You see the land salted. Old surveyors will bloody gem some of those old buggers. So you're showing in here, you're showing this river running right around there. You're showing a lagoon coming in here. And there's even a bit of a leg of that lagoon in there. God, pity Ross is not here, from Lugan and all that. He'd say, what do you reckon's happened? That was 1860, 1880. What do you reckon the situation is now? There's this river running around there. There's this land that we flogged at Turner. Mark Turner's not here. He's a pity, one of his relatives. 37 acres, 3 roofs and 33 perches. Got him here, 38 acres. There's still a lagoon coming in there. That's the aerial photo now. There it is. So this is the land that we flogged. The state, I say we, the state flogged back in 1880. Some poor bugger, great expense. Prime river frontage land. Look at all that river frontage you own and all the rest of it. That's the current situation now. That's where the river runs. So this is the river. That was the old river. See the wheel tracks on it and all the rest of it. That's it. Now, somewhere along the line, back in the 70s, there must have been another river movement, but I haven't quite tracked out. I haven't just bothered to go back and look at aerial photos of the 60s and 70s. Because the Crown came along in about the early 1970s and shot that block of land off about there. And all this became Crown land. They must have known the river had moved. They chopped it off there, and this still stays as freehold. Okay, so I've got a client, EDM Group, we've got a client. Poor bastard owns this title in here. Okay, who laughed? He's probably paid. Don't worry, the banks have probably lent on that too, so don't worry. Commonwealth Bank or NAB, none of them ever get a survey or check the land that they're lending on. So this poor bugger owns this little lock in here. It's got a government road frontage, terrific. Got a government road frontage, and he's got a couple of acres of land right next to the river. Should be an ideal spot for a holiday house or something like that. But that's it there. Okay, we took a heap of levels, and we got a client wants to put a bloody quarry in here. That's a different story. River gravel, but there's the title that our client owns. That bit in there. We're pretty lucky at the moment, just in the middle of summer. So he's actually got this little bit of land in here. He's got that little sliver. He's got, at very, very low water, he's got this gravel bar over there he can exercise his freehold rights on. And he's got government road access in here. And David will probably, under the Road Management Act, tell you that somewhere along the line, 205 Local Government Act, Council's responsible for any road shown, laid out in a plan or something like that. So the council, believe it or not, they've got sort of some rights there on that particular river, although I'll tell you under the Road Management Act they don't. This bloody river's then had the cheek to not only swallow up this poor bugger's freehold title and that government road, but now it's eating into this other bastard's title over here on the right-hand side. And, we're out there trying to bloody advise clients what the hell we should do. And so there it is. Now I look at this and say, there's obviously some major river movement occurred. I'm a bit slow sometimes, but I think it's not slow imperceptible change. I reckon I've looked at it and worked out that it's been something a bit bigger than slow imperceptible change. There's been some major avulsion or two or something like that that's occurred somewhere along the line that's caused that. The river sits on a government road, the old title and all the rest of it. So, you look at that and think, Jesus Christ, what a bloody legal nightmare. I don't think the people drafting our current laws ever envisaged something like that. And river course sits in a paddock, permanent reserve, this 1881 permanent reserve that was set aside for public purposes. That sits in the paddock. Native title, that's another course you can do with David Gabriel Jones. They talk about native title and all that. All the native title, he's not paying me by the way, he should. Native title aspirations, they all sit out in someone's paddock. So all the native title claimants, all their rights are sitting out in the middle of that bloody harmless paddock somewhere. It's managed as a paddock, not as a riparian area. 1881 said the public had this God-given right of access along the waterway of this perfect reserve. Yeah, they can walk through that harmless paddock if they want, but not along the actual waterway where they probably want to fish and pull up in their boat or do whatever. And then I look at this poor bastard, the stateside man in 1881, and he's bought, it's been transferred. What's his freehold rights? He's got that lump of land sitting out there in the middle of the river. And then, occasionally I have a right idea, and I thought, can we do an exchange? Let's play swapskis or something like that. Apparently, used to be the flavour a while back, for swapskis. It makes sense and all the rest of it. We can do it with roads, so why can't we do it with rivers? Like I said, not envisaged, it's unforeseen, and there are no legal provisions really to do it. So this poor bloke, that's one summary. You could probably write 3 or 4 pages or 15 of legal opinion, but my sort of quick summary is something like that. And I'm curious. Anyone that knows me, I've always had a sort of a bent. I'm curious. I always think, what can we learn from life, and what can we learn about things, and what can we do better? Look at some of this riparian land law and think, we've failed 1881 to now, or 1850 to now, we've failed with some of this stuff. There must be a way of doing things better. And as groups, we've all sort of worked independently and tried to change things. We haven't. Joe and I have been on a journey for, 4 or 5 years, trying to change some of the thinking in DSE and trying to get some acts changed and some issues with riparian frontages. Jamie's working on some riparian frontages and done some, we've had some issues with riparian frontages in the past, dealing with DSE grazing licence and all the rest of it. As individuals, it hasn't worked. So I said, what can we learn? What can we do better in life? The topic tonight, the thing I'll put to you is perhaps we need some new legislation. Perhaps we need some sort of riparian management act. Perhaps to correct these unfortunate, unforeseen legacies of the past. And I talked about the oldest profession, and I actually did a bit of a search on the government website and that. There's actually more legislation written about prostitution and sex than there is about surveying, And I'm president of the oldest professional institution in Victoria, so again, most surveyors are like me, shrieking violence, just, keep a low profile. We don't get out and publicise. But again, riparian frontages aren't sexy, very hard to get politicians enthused about them. But really, not only are we victims and surveyors victims, you've got landowners out there. Perhaps we've got to get into bed with different people like the BFF and all the rest of it. And about that particular case, I said it just gets worse. In case you hadn't picked up earlier when I flicked through, it's actually the Murray River. So the Murray River is a state boundary, and there's some High Court cases, the Ward case, 1974, thereabouts. High bank of the Murray, left bank of the Murray River is the state boundary. It's a few little terminologies on that. And how many years they've taken to come up with that, David? It took quite a while. Welcome. You can sit up the front for being late, that's all right. Don't embarrass you or anything like that. Yeah, good. Great to have you here. Put that down as extra number, Joe. Okay. But I just say, it's the Murray River, it's a state boundary. That poor fellow with that freehold title, not only is it river taken, it's actually the muddy Murray River. So is he dealing with Victoria, is he dealing with New South Wales, or is he dealing with the Commonwealth, Murray-Darling Basin Commission? You've got a whole thing there. I just say, if Victoria, we can't fix our problems with all our river frontage, what hope have we got even getting some sort of interstate agreement? I've just said here, what we want is some very brave, passionate, or very naive politicians that we can manipulate and try and get some new legislation.
So do you pay rates on that property? Does he pay rates on that property?
He would be paying rates. He would be paying rates. Sad, isn't it? But he'd be paying rates on that property. So this is unfinished business. I think our legislation in Victoria is unfinished business. I call it that. That was one of my topics tonight. I acknowledge that we've got some very, very passionate people involved in natural resource management here, and most of you are here tonight, and there's a lot that are. Your work is only solving part of the problem. We should work hard to give ourselves collectively better tools. I say, remember the oldest profession. I didn't mention that much earlier on. The oldest profession has a motto. Sometimes you have to get in bed with others to get the job done. And maybe, collectively, we do have to get in bed with others to get the job done of getting a better riparian management. Thank you, and I'll finish under... I've got 20 seconds left in my 25 minutes.